Cool. With that. So I run a creative digital PR agency called Bottled Imagination. And the job I gave myself is quite good because I get to come up with ideas most days. Some of these are good ideas, which means I get to unenthusiastically celebrate award wins. Have you heard the sentence, there's no such thing as a bad idea? Yeah, there definitely is. I've had loads of them. This was one of my first content marketing campaigns in 2014, probably. I was trying to figure out the optimum home renovation budget in order to be able to survive the zombie apocalypse. The only people that saw this were me and the client. It got no results whatsoever. And some of my ideas rightly don't get signed off, like Puppy Squid Game. Look, no puppies were harmed in the pitching of Puppy Squid Game. It's important to us, but the client rightly didn't sign it off. I'm not actually that creative, even though I run a creative digital PR agency. In the supportive words of my co-founders, you can't be creative director. That's why I've got a made-up title like creative strategy director. You can probably tell by my tone, I'm a little bit of a robot. So creativity doesn't come naturally to me, and I've had to form this process over the last sort of 10, 13 years. At the same time, we're reaching saturation again in content marketing and digital PR. This is tweets from journalists. So on the left-hand side, that's the number of unread emails in that journalist's inbox. It's 1,300. And on the right-hand side, it's worse than this now. This was a couple of years ago. A journalist replied saying how many emails they get in a day, 1,700, and it's only got worse since then. Some journalists are so time poor, they just copy and paste our press releases into the actual articles. That's the sign-off from our PR manager, Lucy. And they're so time poor that that's kind of what their life is now. The PR journalist black book is dead. Journalists don't have time to go out to lunch with PRs anymore, and PRs in the UK are too poor to take them out for lunch at the moment as well. The black book is now the quality of your story and getting that story to stand out amongst 1,700 other stories. We're even reaching saturation in formats. So let's pretend this is 2024 because we've not quite got around to doing the 2024 format report yet. But we track sort of types of content that's produced year on year. And last year, if you're looking at different types of content that's improving or being published more by journalists and websites, AI predicts type content is being produced way more. It's a massive increase on that. Same with Reimagined, and again, that was kind of AI inspired. Maps are also up, but then if you look at certain things that are down year on year, so like new study shows, new data shows, dream job campaigns, and infographics were down year on year in terms of formats of content that was being produced by websites and journalists. At the same time, AI is here. That's undeniable. It's in most people's talks this week. Like most of you, probably at one point I was worried, is it coming for my job? And then I remembered I have no real skills for it to take, so best of luck to it. This is going to go hand in hand. So saturation and AI are going to go hand in hand. There's going to be more content produced than ever before, and it's going to be harder to stand out. AI, when it comes to creativity, it's good at some things, it's not great at others. We know this because we hired one. Meet Amy, or AI me. I told you I wasn't very creative. We actually interviewed what was Google Bard and ChatGPT, Google Bard at the time, and ChatGPT for a role at Bottled Imagination. Used our normal interviewing criteria and then hired one based on its responses. We asked it how it would dress for the role, and then we put that into Midjourney to create Amy. We added Amy to our Slack channels. Amy was chatty. Amy was also really super quick at replying, like suspiciously quick, like she's really intelligent or something like that. Amy also pulled data really quickly when we were trying to use it for certain campaigns. But Amy did tell a few lies with the data. We all know by now AI hallucinations are a thing. My favorite thing at the time was telling AI it's let itself down when it made up some data, which will no doubt come back to haunt me in the apocalypse we're heading towards. Amy's creative ideas were not that creative. So we gave Amy a brief to come up with 3 digital PR campaigns for our US travel client. And Amy's ideas were like spring break insider guides, spring break adventure photo contest, student travel stories. They're all kind of like top level type ideas that weren't really that good. And the call started getting a bit awkward. I'm quite deadpan, but Amy really wasn't giving us much back at all on these Google Hangout calls. Then she forgot she wasn't a physical entity and invited us out to someone's birthday party. So there's Amy saying, I'll meet you at the reception around 6-ish. Absolutely terrifying. She was excited to get to know the rest of the team as well. Amy didn't pass probation. We had to let her go in the end. She was good at some things, but she was too scary. So like me, AI isn't actually that creative or naturally creative. But you can use the same process and logic as an AI to come up with actual creative ideas. It's just input and output. So when you're working with an AI, you usually give it a prompt, it gathers information, and then provides a creative output, and that'll either be in Word format or in a visual format if you're using something like Midjourney. And I've realized I've used this process in my own head for years now. And I've accidentally created a process for a creativity that pretty much anyone can use. Give a prompt. This is usually a brief. So this is a brief that we get from a client. I need a digital PR campaign that's capable of building 15 links from travel publications in the US. That's a fairly typical brief for us. Like AI, this gets better with experience. So I've worked in digital PR for quite a long time. Based on past experience, a state-by-state comparison works. Gather information. Now this bit is key. So I'll call this a theme analysis, and we don't do brainstorms at my agencies without someone doing a theme analysis to bring to the brainstorm. So let's say you're a travel insurance provider. We use a tool called BuzzSumo, and it pulls up the most socially shared content around any key term you put in there. And we'll start with the product theme, so travel insurance. BuzzSumo is a great tool, by the way. I was like probably one of the first 10 users of it, and have used it ever since. So primary theme, travel insurance, that's what their client actually does. We can pull out the number of articles published per month around travel insurance, so we can vet a theme to see if it's actually newsworthy or not. And we can pull out the domains, it's a bit blurry there, we pull out the domains that actually talk about travel insurance as well. So all the nationals in the UK talk about travel insurance. And we can pull out some consistent themes here. So there's like some warnings around travel insurance that gets published quite a lot. Hospital bills after failing to get travel insurance. So quite a lot of like shocking stuff gets published as well. There's also travel warning plus insurance. So every time there's a travel warning that comes out around certain countries, there's spikes in articles produced. For some reason, people find that funny. I don't know why. I've not actually looked into it. But there's quite a lot of articles that are produced around certain places not to travel or to make sure you've got insurance before you travel. So then we go on to secondary themes. Cruises would be a secondary theme. This particular client sells cruise travel insurance. It's talked about quite a lot in the press, cruises. All the nationals kind of talk about it. And also we can pull out things, I've never been on a cruise, so I don't know what I'm doing. I can pull out things like, okay, Gen Z is making cruises cool again. So I didn't know that until I started doing this theme analysis. Another secondary theme, airline down. This isn't a catastrophe type thing. It's more like when an airline app goes down, loads of articles are published around that in the press. Again, you can jump on that from a travel insurance point of view to say, here's what you should do if this happens. Same with strikes, more and more airline strikes. Every time there's an airline strike, a big amount of publishers of articles around that, and you can jump on the back of that. So what you're doing is you keep going until you get too far removed from the core theme, and then it becomes irrelevant. And then manually go through and pull out tropes that do well, and then plot them on a graph between sort of on-brand and high press interest and low press interest. And we're trying to find like the sweet spot in the top right-hand corner. So here, things like digital nomad travel insurance advice, because digital nomads is on the rise, particularly from the UK at the moment. Gen Z cruising, that's kind of an interesting theme to explore. We thought if there's travel warnings, I don't know if anyone's watched The White Lotus, but it's a pretty dangerous hotel to stay in. So things like whether we could release a fake travel warning for staying at the White Lotus Hotel. The rise of workations was a thing, and also that airline strike, airline down kind of advice, that was always going on as well. And then what you want to do is start unofficially validating these themes. So you want to think, does the idea have enough layers? Is there just one angle you can go with? Is there multiple angles you can go out with? Does it make them feel something? So ideas tied to emotion tend to work a bit better than ideas that aren't tied to an emotion. Is it too top level? So in passionate niches, it's so important that your idea isn't top level, particularly with educated journalists as well. So anything to do with gaming or sports, the journalists know a lot of stuff. You can't get by on an idea that's just really top level. So here's an example. When Wakanda Forever came out, it was the most popular release of Marvel Phase 3. That was pretty obvious. We couldn't go to a journalist with that information because they already know it. 5 minutes of research, found out 1,000 people are searching for flights to Wakanda because they think it's a real place. So that kind of stuff you can take, put into a press release and go out to journalists with. This one's even stupider. So I don't know if anyone knows who Robbie Williams is. Singer in the UK, massive, released a biopic film. For some reason, he's a chimpanzee in the biopic film. But anyway, it bombed in the American box office. No one knew who he was, and it wasn't doing very well. Again, that's pretty obvious because all the stats are out there for that. 5,000 people were searching for, was Robbie Williams a monkey? So people thought that Robbie Williams was a singing chimpanzee. 5,000 people were searching for that. So again, a little bit of interesting research. You can add a tangent to this and go out to press. Has it been done before? That's a question you need to ask yourself when you're doing this theme analysis. There'd been a lot that had been done in the broadband sector. It's quite like a dry niche as well. I did a bit of research using BuzzSumo and found out the moon was getting 4G at the time, whilst connection down in rural Britain in particular was crap still. We just connected the two. So we found the places in rural Britain that had worse internet connectivity than the moon and went out to press with that story. And it had people and Daily Mail readers in the comments out with their pitchforks marching at the moon in the UK because they were furious. And then you want to think about what hasn't been done. AI isn't very good at that at all. It'll kind of spit back things that have been done. But you don't actually need to be creative to come up with something that hasn't been done either. I'm going to give you a sexy but saturated niche here. Car insurance. Even sexier actually, temporary car insurance. Everything's already been done in car insurance, and that's because the difference between ranking 4th and 1st for car insurance is worth hundreds of thousands of pounds per month, so it's heavily invested in across the UK. Did a bit of research and we found out that around festival season there was a lot of articles published in the UK when Glastonbury was on around drink and drug driving around that kind of period. We did a survey and we found out 63% of festival goers would drive home the next day before they felt sober enough to. So we created a service that sat on the actual landing page where we republished their kind of temporary car insurance product as temporary festival car insurance, where if you've had too much to drink at a festival, you can get your mate insured on your car the next day in 5 minutes and they can drive you home. So this is an example of something that didn't exist before, and we created something bespoke for that client. But the point is, we don't get here without this. That's how we got to that idea. So that's the theory behind those things. Give a prompt, gather information, creative output. When it comes to creative output, I'm not a designer. This is what my design capabilities are. So what's in my head is always award-winning work. It's amazing. My actual creative capabilities are that of like a 3-year-old. So I'm not a designer, I'm a creative person. So I have to rely on other experts to do the creative side for me. And AI will also scrape formats that are already out there and just suggest them back to you. So with creative format and a creative output, you need to match the idea to the format and not the other way around. If all the information you consume is dream job campaigns or indexes or maps, then all the ideas you have will be indexes, maps, or dream jobs. So that's why, a bit like AI, we've become a bit cookie cutter over the last few years in terms of formats of campaigns. And it doesn't really have to be that way either when it comes to these formats. Hair transplants, millions of men suffer from hair loss. I'm praying that the light is doing me a favor here because whenever I bring up this campaign, everyone looks at my hairline. Millions of men suffer from hair loss. A bit of research, you find out it comes from your maternal grandfather. So we created a service where you can invoice your granddad for your hair transplant because it's scientifically his fault. So again, this format doesn't exist before. It's something that we've created specifically for this hair transplant client. One more on creative outputs because it's one we did a week ago. This one's called Just a Minute. So this is for a bathroom client in the UK. It takes 1 minute in the bathroom to check for lumps. And we found that 91% of cancer symptoms can be found in the bathroom. But 45% of men don't check for lumps in the shower. So that's quite a shocking stat. We could just send that survey results out to the press and get coverage and links. But if you're going to take one piece of advice from me today above everything else, if you are doing a campaign around testicles, make the creative look like testicles. It's your one chance. So the creative matched the actual idea in this instance, and we made it look a bit that way. And same for females as well. 1 in 3 women didn't check for lumps in the shower. So we made the creative sort of correlate to that. I had a couple of people messaging me on LinkedIn about this campaign saying they've started doing that in the shower now, which I'm like, okay, great, but I'm not your doctor and I don't need to know that sort of stuff. But that's a good idea in terms of thinking of something bespoke for that particular campaign instead of just doing a generic format. So for this talk, I went through past campaigns and how to use this exact process before, and I plotted them on like an innovation scale, I use the word innovation because clients don't like the word risk, so I'll just change the word to innovation. From low innovation to high innovation. AI can do this pretty well, low innovation type stuff. And we believe like this area, like 1 to 7, they can be inspired by data and research. And then 9s and 10s, they need to be almost like pure inspiration and then validated using the data. So like reverse engineering this whole process. I'll go through an example of this first. So sort of a 1 to 7 area and how I'd use this exact process to come up with this specific idea. So same client, Victorian Plumbing, bathroom client in the UK. This one's called The Final Flush. Give a prompt. The brief was create an evergreen campaign that will build links from national and regional press. So quite a normal brief that we'd get from one of our clients. So I'm at the gather information stage at this point, doing a theme analysis, putting in their core theme terms, bathrooms, trying to pull out anything that's useful here. Jennifer Lopez gets tired of shopping for one of her 24 new bathrooms. Really feel your pain, J-Lo. Bathrooms according to zodiac signs, hate that. I'm not going to do anything with that. But there wasn't really much coming up within the bathroom area. So I moved on to toilets. We found that Brighton was one of the best places in the UK for accessible toilets, so accessibility was an issue. Motorways and highways were the biggest gaps between toilets, and then some things around water saving as well. So there's interesting things that came up there. Something that came up was also public toilets, and despite the rumours, I'm not an expert in public toilets, but there was something here. So there was over 60 articles per month published around public toilets in the UK. The client wants to get on national and regional press. They bloody love public toilets in the UK. Like the Daily Mail, the Mirror, BBC, and all the regional press talk about public toilets all the time. So in summary, people were passionate about their local community. Public toilets were on the decline in the UK. That was something that came up. Provision varies by region, and also it's a public health issue for people with IBS and things like that. So I'm on the creative output stage. So we thought if they're declining in numbers, let's show when they're going to go extinct. So we did that. We did an FOI request, pulled data from each region, and found that the decline rate, if that carried on, when toilets would go extinct by. So Newcastle would have no toilets by 2028. And we plotted that in a radar graph there. Job done, right? But we thought if they're going extinct, then technically they're endangered. And we should create WWF endangered species style posters for each region. So London toilets are an endangered species. And we thought we should probably try and save them if they're endangered. So we created a petition to save the Great British Public Toilet, put it on the government website. Then we're like, oh, how do we actually get signatures to this thing? So we targeted local activists and people affected by IBS and things in their local regions with this specific creative, driving traffic to the petition page. The comments went wild as well. We called it mobilising the Karens in the UK. There was a lot of comments on there around this kind of stuff, and it was driving 2p a click through to the petition page. We got 2,500 signatures in 24 hours. So we're about here at the minute. We made it a bit more creative from an initial concept. So then we thought we should probably do a wildlife documentary style video, sticking with the wildlife theme and all. And who better than David Attenborough himself? Turns out David Attenborough was busy saving actual endangered species, so we couldn't get hold of him. So we used a voiceover artist instead that sounded like David Attenborough and created a video that was like a wildlife documentary style video. So this one has regional angles. We went out to all the kind of regions with it. National angles, got on Huffington Post as well as national press. And it's evergreen as well, so this still picks up links now. We don't even outreach it. It got on also Loose Women, which is a TV show in the UK. Remember, I'm a bit of a robot. So input and output, I can reverse engineer this. I just found that public toilets were declining. I didn't know anything about public toilets before. So we can just calculate the extinction rate from that. Just the word extinct made me think of the endangered species angle. And then thinking, can we stop it? Well, yeah, we can. We can create a petition. We can drive traffic to it using paid social. And then how do we get press from this? Well, we use the social engagement and the petition to help bolster the outreach and get in press. So the point with this is don't just stop here. I think we can do a lot more than this. And I think that's kind of what's happening over the last sort of 3 years or so. And it might happen more with the emergence of AI as well. But it was just pure logical research-based ideation, that idea. One more example, a little bit more innovative. On strings attached, give a prompt. So global sportswear brand On, they approached us about the campaign to improve their awareness and visibility, specifically of the tennis sneakers category in the UK and US. So it's an SEO campaign, that's who approached us. And we needed to close the gap between real authority in the space and digital authority. On invest a lot in tennis players. Roger Federer is a stakeholder in the business. They invest a lot in offline sponsorship of tennis players. But more people search for Nike tennis sneakers and Adidas tennis sneakers than they do On tennis sneakers. Normally, in a massive company like On, they're like $2-3 billion company. Brand and comms team have an idea, goes through to creative, goes through to social. Then about 20 minutes before launch, they go, "Can you SEO this?" to the SEO team. That tends to be what happens across massive companies like that. Well, we had to flip it. So we had to go from an SEO team and the SEO campaign through the brand and comms team, through the creative, and through the social team. And we use this process to do it. So I'm gathering information. If we want to get on the likes of Highsnobiety and Complex, two cool publications, we need to know what they talk about. And you can use BuzzSumo to do that on a publication level. So we were searching for tennis and Highsnobiety. They don't talk about tennis much at all, so that makes things a bit trickier. First Look in the headline, so first look at these sneakers. They used to publish loads of articles around that, but they haven't over the past sort of 2-3 years, so that's died off a little bit. Collabs, they still publish quite a lot around, so there's still a high number of articles around collaborations in the sneaker press. So what we need here is ideas that can drive brand searches and build links. They'd be ideal, but one of those is still great. We needed something that sits here, something that's on brand and also press worthy. Like I said, fortunately, they have a shareholder in Roger Federer, one of the greatest tennis players of all time. So when we're mapping themes, we had things like sneaker concepts, tennis parents, like pushy tennis parents, grassroots tennis was a thing, new collaborations, and a campaign plus Roger Federer would be quite cool as well. So we decided to focus on this area because that's our quickest win or biggest win that we could have with this. Which meant that this process, SEO through brand, through creative, through social, had a final boss, which is Roger Federer. We had to get Roger Federer to sign off on our SEO campaign. That was the objective. Creative output. Everyone wants a piece of greatness. That's why they buy Air Jordans or Roger Pros. That was my theory. I'm wearing some Roger Pros now. No discount, bit annoying. So the idea here, we created 3 limited edition Roger Pro sneakers where we integrated the strings from Roger Federer's 2009 Wimbledon winning racket into the actual shoe itself and raffled them off to fans. So what we did with this, from an SEO point of view, we put it on the actual category page itself. That's where the raffle was hosted. So you had to enter on the actual category page of tennis sneakers. We flew the sneakers from Zurich to New York City in 24 hours because we launched them on the sneaker shopping channel ran by Complex. Complex has millions of followers. So we launched it on that channel. The last 3 minutes of that episode is our campaign. So on top of the coverage that we've got loads of social engagements. There's 25,000 entries, but with something like this as well, you can also track the increase in traffic to that category page and the increase in sales to that category page week on week during that campaign launch. And the actual purpose for this was to move the needle in organic search. So they'd never ranked or their ranking out the positions 10 for non-branded key terms like tennis shoes. We built a handful of links into the actual direct to the tennis sneakers category from the likes of tennis.com, highly relevant, going direct to the sneakers category. And rankings have improved across non-branded key terms in the UK and US for that. I put the same brief into ChatGPT just to see what it'll spit out. It's about a few different ideas, but I picked out one because I found it funny. So this one was Play Your Way, a social media and influencer challenge, where it suggested using personalities like Naomi Osaka and Emma Raducanu. They are sponsored by the competitors of On, so we wouldn't be able to use them, of course. And they wouldn't have got past this first stage of getting sign-off process. We had to go through the brand and comms team, the creative team, the social team, up to Roger Federer. Thinking like a robot again. My input and output here, I need something that strengthens that category, the tennis sneakers category. Well, a product development campaign does actually help us to do that. Everyone wants a piece of greatness. Well, we can actually create a piece of greatness. We can create memorabilia plus product, and that's our best way of playing into that sort of theme. We want to bridge the gap in online presence. Well, getting on key publications like Complex and launching on the sneaker shopping channel can help with that kind of stuff as well. So you can actually reverse engineer this whole process as well. So on an innovation scale, we said at the start, like this kind of needs to be almost pure inspiration, then validated using data. AI probably not going to be taking this away from us, at least not yet anyway. Jordan Rees. So gambling awareness campaigns are the same every single year. The book is put a celebrity in front of a camera and they tell you to gamble responsibly, and that's pretty much it. So we're thinking what hasn't been done here and what will actually make people stop and think when it comes to gambling awareness. We did a survey and found that 70% of people have bet on a team or individual they know little to nothing about, so there's a lot of reckless gambling going on out there. Step up Jordan Rees. If you're not a football fan, don't worry, he's one of the most prolific strikers in the English game. Everyone knows who he is. And all the influencers were talking about his 10-to-1 chance of making the England World Cup squad in Qatar. All the fans started joining in and having their say on the potential England star. Some were saying he looks seriously talented. I hope Southgate picks him. One said, that's why England won't win anything. They overhype average to bad players and expect them to play like Messi. At the end of the day, they just disappoint. So the fans were getting involved. 5,000 of them actually clicked through to place a bet on Jordan Rees making the England World Cup squad. The problem was he wasn't real. We made him up. We hired a model, we brought a kit, and we did a photo shoot. The model had never played football before or modelled before, so that was a slight issue. But we got around it. And when site visitors entered that page, they were informed about responsible gambling and given lots of different useful links on sort of educated gambling and things like that. Then we used the fact that 5,000 people went to place a bet on a player that didn't exist as the actual press hook. That's what we went out to press with during Gambling Awareness Week. And we got on national press and things like that. So the thing with this is most gambling awareness campaigns are all the same. They tell you to gamble responsibly and that's it. Instead, we actually did something that was a different format for it. So should you get a moment of pure, non-artificial creativity, you can reverse engineer this whole process. So my input here was, let's create a fake football. I just had an exciting idea in the pub and I wanted to do it. My output was actually the reverse of this. So I actually did some research and then found that all gambling awareness campaigns were pretty much the same at the time. My input was still, let's create a fake football. I still didn't have an actual idea here. But then I thought we actually can. We can hire a model, we can buy a kit, we can do a photo shoot, we can stage that. And then it was like, how do we get thousands of people to try and place a bet on him? Well, we use banner ads, we use football influencers to actually reverse engineer and get people to drive traffic to the website. How do we get press? Well, we can just use that traffic as the actual press hook for it. So like AI, you get better at all this with practice and experience. So wrapping up, I've got some key takeaways. Give yourself educated prompts and learn from past prompts as well. The gather information stage is vital, don't rush it. So sometimes we take like 1-2 weeks on like a theme analysis, all that kind of research before actually coming up with ideas in a brainstorm. And I think trying to come up with ideas on the spot is really difficult. So I used to have a process which was, I used to meditate and have a bath to come up with ideas, which is a sentence that 21-year-old me is absolutely disgusted with. But that was my process for it, and now I've got slightly better. I don't have to do that every time. My water bill was through the roof. But don't try and come up with ideas on the spot. Not many people can do that. The input and output method will also help you validate and learn from previous ideas you've done. Just doing this talk was pretty useful for me to go through those and kind of look how I came to that kind of idea. Idea first, format second, not format first, then idea. So you need to research, use that process, and then find the format that suits that campaign best. Don't stop at the first idea either. I think there's too much of that happening right now. And I think AI will probably wipe out all of those first ideas that you can probably think of. You need to go past that. You need to think more creatively, and then you'll be able to stand out amongst a really saturated sort of media landscape. I think creative ideation is still something we can own as well. There's lots of sort of concerns with AI at the moment, but I think creative ideation is still something we can own. And even if you're not creative, you can still use a process like this to kind of help you with that. And if you haven't got any skills on AI, I can't take them anyway, so I'm going to be fine. Just wrapping up quickly. Now, if you scan that QR code on there, it does absolutely nothing. It goes to Wikipedia. I just wanted sort of the feeling of everyone taking a photo of me on stage right at the end of the talk. So thanks very much for listening. You can follow me on LinkedIn or anything like that as well. Cheers.
Thank you. Wow, definitely a good laugh. And the method that I've been talking about for years and years on the social media side of things with my clients. So just happy to see that your whole agency adopts it as a process systematically. We do have quite a bit of questions that I will read out for you, but as I'm doing it, feel free to submit more questions or there will be open mic. I can just come up to you. You can ask your questions out loud as well. So starting with the first one, can we see the toilet video?
Yeah, so I'll try and find it. If you Google Victorian Plumbing Final Flush or something like that, the video is actually hosted on the landing page. And we hired a videographer to go out and shoot videos of public toilets in the UK, which is not the most glamorous of jobs to give someone. And look, I missed that shoot. I was doing something else. But yeah, it's on. If you Google Victorian Plumbing Final Flush, the actual documentary style videos on that landing page, I think.
Yes, of course, we're starting with the important questions.
Yeah.
I'm going to Google it too. And continuing on that topic, what was the budget for this campaign and how did you get the stakeholders on board?
So the budget wasn't like colossal. So we have ranges of budgets for this kind of package was probably between 6 and 12k per month, and we do a campaign every sort of 2 months. So it's roughly around that sort of that budget. But alongside that, we also do reactive PR, so it's not purely on that campaign. In terms of getting sign off, I think it takes a while to build up trust sometimes with clients. But what I do is use that process. So I showed them how I came up with that idea, and then they understood the logic and rationale behind it. It became a bit less like you've got a random idea about public toilets. Like, where did you get that from? More like a logical process for it. And like, I think this is going to work because all this shows that it's probably going to work. So that really helped getting buy-in from clients. Is actually just almost like showing you're working out of a maths equation. You used to get extra points for that at school. I use it to help get sign off now from clients.
And you back it up with data. They
Yeah.
can't argue with
Yeah.
numbers. Yeah. Another question is about the size of your creative team that works on a campaign.
So the average team working on a campaign would probably be a PR manager, a PR exec, and then a PR account director or a senior PR. And then we'd use, we don't actually have any internal creatives until recently. So we use sort of freelance creatives depending on the actual thing we want. Instead of having an in-house creative and everything looks the same, then we find the right creative and match it to that. So there'd probably be a team of 4 working on a campaign like that. It's not actually a massive team or huge size. The PR manager controls it throughout and makes sure it comes out to what they actually wanted in the first place, or what I wanted from the random idea I came up with. So yeah, it's not a huge team, and not actually colossal budgets, these kind of things either.
And if there are any follow-up questions to the original one, feel free to raise your hand. I'll walk up to you. Okay. And the next one would be, at what speed do you get the campaigns out and how can you be reactive when there's a sign-off process?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. So to give like the Jordan Rees campaign, that actually took like 2 weeks because the World Cup was coming up. We had a good idea and we just went for it. It requires a bit of trust. Again, you build that over time with clients. I wouldn't start with a Jordan Rees type campaign or a public toilets type campaign with clients. I'll probably start with something a bit safer. Reactive wise, the clients are kind of agreeing to how you kind of work when we work with them. So we kind of set expectations and say if it's like a really reactive campaign or a reactive piece of PR, please sign it off within a few hours if possible. So trying to agree that ahead of time, and trying to prep everything, and also when you pitch it, to kind of show that rationale and workings out, that sort of reduces any questions they might have, reduces any red tape, and helps sort of quicken up that process so you're not waiting on sign off. Because you've explained everything to them, they can send that to their boss if they need to as well. I'd also try and figure out the worst thing that could happen, and then say that to the client, and then say, this is probably the worst thing that can happen. We don't think it's that bad. And then that's sort of alleviate that concern as well.
Do you do any real-time campaigns?
Yeah, we do. It's probably more smaller stuff. So like reactive PR, where something happens in the press, and then we jump on the back of that. So the Flights to Wakanda thing, for example, that would have been great for a travel client. So what we'll do is we'll try and connect. We call it like cause and trend PR. We'll spot a trend and then identify the cause of that trend, and then put those two things together, put it in a comment, and then get it out. We don't actually have to create anything necessarily for that. So we can be a lot quicker with that kind of stuff. But yeah.
We do have another question, or more like an ask for recommendations for small 1-2 persons who doesn't have much time or decent budgets or creativity.
I think
A lot of constraints in the question.
lot of constraints. Yeah, that's how I started. So I started in a really small agency. We didn't have any budget. There was just me and one other person. I had no design resource. I think if you can do it in those constraints, you'll be amazing with bigger budgets. So I would recommend anyone to work on a dry, boring niche with limited sort of scope. It makes you more creative to think differently. So yeah, I think that you can still use that process. And then when it comes to the actual format, you can probably say, okay, we don't need to do a wildlife documentary style video. We can do something a bit different. But the hair transplants campaign, for example, we just added an email sign up form on the website. That's all it was. The actual creative execution didn't take much time, but it was the idea itself. It worked without having to be massive budget because the client didn't have a huge budget for that.
I personally love the Glastonbury example because I'm the friend that drives my friends
Yeah.
back. But do you have any examples of bad campaigns or things where went wrong?
Like I was saying before, everything I'm so
So
good at it. It's difficult to think of any bad ones. No, I think like I had lots of failures at the start. Like I said, that sort of like optimum budget to survive the zombie apocalypse. I'm like, this is great. This is going to go everywhere, and just did nothing at all. We also did a campaign at a previous agency where we created a bee retirement home for bees because they only live a year, and we wanted to give them like a little mini retirement home to put their wings up before they die, however. So we actually created that, and we got a like I don't know what you call them, someone who looks after bees, and bee models, and we did like the actual shoot in a little model home and things like that. So we put loads of effort into it. Like, this is great. This is a cool idea. It's so cute. But because it was like a stunt, and it wasn't actually doing anything, we didn't create bee retirement homes around the UK for bees to chill out. It was just a bit stunty. There was no real like sort of purpose after the campaign. It did okay, but we really struggled to get like the kind of results that warranted creating a bee retirement home using bee models and hiring a beekeeper. Also, our videographer was allergic to bees and he was terrified doing that video. So that was probably one where I was like, this is so cute, it's gonna work. And then it did okay, and it's sort of a bit underwhelming given the level that they've gone into it.
love the thought process though.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions in the room? We do have a few more minutes for a few more questions. I can walk up to you with a microphone, or you can submit it on the screen. I'll read it out loud. Just use your opportunity. Luke is not here every day, so let's ask while we can.
First and last time in Lithuania, I think.
Wait, first or last?
No, I'm joking. I really like it. It's cool.
Yes, we have a question.
B2B, yeah. Okay, good question. B2B. So I'll tell you the actual. Yeah. B2B's, we have like a pretty fast growing area of B2B at the minute, and I think there's a massive opportunity in B2B because historically more red tape, sort of people's jobs in B2B to kind of stop other people doing their jobs, it seems almost. So B2B, it can still work. I think you're just going to be faced with more red tape, and I think B2B campaigns we've done. So the Amy campaign, that was for a B2B client. We did all the study, and then they sort of went, oh, I don't know if we can do this. Like we're too nervous by it. So we did it in-house then. So that is like, you wanted creativity, you wanted this AI type campaign. Here's one. We got press coverage from it. They would have got press coverage in all their publications they wanted to get in. But we had to water it down. We did a survey on sort of marketers' thoughts on AI then and went out to press, and we kind of did have to water it down a little bit. I think we're still trying to kind of find our feet with kind of B2B, I think in general across the industry, because there's a massive opportunity to be creative there still, because you're still talking to people. Those people still consume like press coverage and things like that and consume media online. I would say B2B, the biggest issue is people trying to hold it back and being a bit scared and being a bit traditional with it. But yeah, the Amy campaign, for example, was a B2B campaign. We've got another couple of cool ones in the works at the moment. But yeah, I think B2B, what I would try and do with that is when you're using the data and theme insights and things like that, tie it to how you're going to track impact. Because most B2B clients, they might come to us and say, we want brand awareness. You ask a couple of questions or you meet the CEO and they're like, no, we want leads. So it goes down to that. So if you can tie it back to, look, when we do a B2B campaign, we say, look, we can track all the brands that land on this campaign using things like Clearbit or Lead Forensics, and then provide that to your sales team, you can see what part of the pipeline they're in your CRM. And then you might be able to repurpose campaigns as sales enablement tools and say, look, this cool thing you were engaging with last week, they're a warm lead in the CRM and they've gone out just to set up a conversation based off that actual fun thing they've engaged with. So with B2B, we tailor it a little bit. It can be a challenge, but I think tying it back to we can track these things more than just here's a wacky campaign. That tends to help.
And I think being on the brand side with that kind of B2B campaigns, we used to go with the logic of ask for forgiveness, not for permission. Doesn't always work, but can show an example and open the doors for more creative campaigns.